My name is Hilton, and at 34 years old, I never thought I would be the family member left behind. Growing up with 3 sisters in suburban Massachusetts, I was used to fighting for my place, but I always believed family meant everyone was included. That belief shattered when my parents told me there simply was not enough room for me on our annual family vacation. The words stung, but what happened next cut deeper than I could have imagined. Before I tell you how my own family left me behind and what I did when they needed me most, let me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you have ever felt like the forgotten family member. Trust me, what happened next changed everything. Family dynamics are complicated, especially when you are the only son among 3 daughters. My sisters Jessica, Amanda, and Bethany always seemed to have a special bond with our parents that I could never quite match. Jessica, the oldest at 37, inherited Mom's organizational skills and Dad's charm. Amanda, 32, was the family peacekeeper who everyone adored. Bethany, the baby at 28, remained the apple of our parents' eyes well into adulthood. Then there was me, sandwiched between Jessica and Amanda, often feeling like the square peg in a round hole. Growing up in our modest home in Newton, Massachusetts, Robert and Linda Warner were good parents by most standards. Dad worked as an accountant, while Mom taught at the local elementary school. They attended every school function, made sure we all went to college, and hosted Sunday dinners without fail. On the surface, everything looked perfect, but beneath that picture-perfect family image, small inequalities existed that only I seemed to notice. When Jessica got her first car at 16, it was a nearly new Honda. When my 16th birthday came around, Dad handed me the keys to a 12-year-old station wagon with mysterious stains on the back seat. "Be grateful," he said. "Some kids do not get cars at all," and I was grateful. I never complained, even when Amanda later received a car similar to Jessica's. College funding followed a similar pattern. My sisters received support for 4 full years. I got 2 years covered before Dad sat me down for a talk about becoming independent and learning the value of hard work. I took out loans, worked part-time jobs, and finished my computer science degree, while my younger sister Bethany later enjoyed the same full ride our older sisters had received. "Your sisters are more delicate," Mom would explain when I questioned these disparities. "You are our strong boy. You can handle more challenges," and so I accepted that narrative, shouldered the additional burdens, and worked twice as hard to earn the approval that seemed to come so easily to my sisters. Despite these undercurrents, I valued my family. I made the 3-hour drive from Boston, where I now worked as a software engineer, to Newton at least twice a month for family gatherings. I remembered every birthday with thoughtful gifts. When Dad needed a new roof, I contributed the largest share. When Mom wanted to renovate the kitchen, I spent 2 weeks of vacation time helping with the demolition and rebuilding work. Our annual family vacation tradition began 15 years ago when I was in college. What started as a weekend trip to Cape Cod evolved into an annual week-long excursion to increasingly distant destinations. As my career advanced and my financial situation improved, I often contributed more than my fair share to these trips. 5 years ago, I suggested we create a shared family account specifically for vacations and emergencies. Everyone contributed monthly, but the amounts varied based on income. Naturally, as the most financially successful sibling working for a prominent tech company, my contributions outpaced the others. Last year's trip to the Grand Canyon had been my suggestion. I researched accommodations, mapped out hiking trails appropriate for everyone's fitness levels, and even arranged a private guide for a sunrise tour. Mom had hugged me afterward, saying, "This was the best trip yet, Hilton. You really outdid yourself." That moment of recognition had meant everything to me. This year's trip planning began in January with a flurry of excited texts in our family group chat. Florida was the chosen destination, with plans for beach days, a boat tour, and visits to various attractions. "We should look into those airboat tours through the Everglades," I suggested one evening. My colleague went last summer and said it was the highlight of their trip. "Great idea, Hilton," Mom responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Adding it to the list, I offered accommodation suggestions, researched the best beaches, and even began setting aside additional funds, anticipating I would cover any unexpected expenses as usual. For weeks, The planning continued with my input seemingly valued and incorporated. Then, in late February, something shifted. The once active group chat fell silent for days at a time. When discussions did happen, they often occurred while I was in meetings, resulting in decisions made without my input. Direct questions about specific dates or accommodations received vague answers. "We are still figuring out the details," Dad would say. "Do not worry about it," Jessica added. "Everything is under control." I dismissed my concerns as paranoia. Perhaps they were just busy. Maybe they wanted to surprise me with something special, considering how much effort I had put into last year's trip. I continued depositing money into our shared vacation account, assuming my place in the family tradition was secure. One Tuesday in early March, Mom called to invite me to dinner at their house. "Family meeting about the trip," she said cheerfully. "This Thursday at 6. I am making your favorite lasagna." I arrived at my parents' house that Thursday evening with a bottle of Dad's favorite whiskey and a new vacation planning book for Mom. The atmosphere felt oddly tense as I entered. Dad was unusually quiet. Mom kept disappearing into the kitchen despite the food being ready, and my sisters seemed intensely focused on their phones. Something was definitely off. We ate dinner with forced small talk about work and the unusually warm spring weather. No one mentioned the vacation until after Mom served dessert, a clear sign in our family that difficult news was coming. Bad news in the Warner family was always cushioned with chocolate cake. "So, about Florida," Dad finally said, clearing his throat and avoiding my eyes. "We have finalized the plans, and there has been a slight change." I took a bite of cake, waiting for him to continue. "The thing is, Hilton," he said, glancing at Mom, who suddenly became very interested in rearranging the fruit on her plate, "we do not think there is going to be enough room for you this year." The fork paused halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" "The rental car," Mom jumped in. "We could only get a certain size, and with all the luggage for a beach trip, it just would not be comfortable with 6 adults. 6 adults. My parents, my 3 sisters, and me. The math did not add up. "I can rent my own car," I offered immediately. "That is not a problem at all. I can meet you there." "The accommodations would be tight too," Jessica added. "The condo only has 3 bedrooms." "I can sleep on the couch," I said, feeling a growing knot in my stomach. "Or I can get my own place nearby." Dad shook his head. "We have already put down non-refundable deposits based on 5 people. The property management company is very strict about occupancy limits. 5 people, not 6. They had planned for 5 from the beginning." "When did you decide this?" I asked, putting down my fork as the realization hit me. "When did you decide I was not coming?" The uncomfortable glances exchanged around the table told me everything. This was not a recent development or a logistical problem that had just emerged. This was the plan all along. "We thought it would be easier this way," Mom said softly. "You are so busy with your job, and you mentioned that big project coming up." I had mentioned a project once, in passing, months ago. A project that was already completed. "We just figured you would not mind sitting this one out," Bethany added with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You can come next year for sure." I looked around the table at my family, searching for any sign that this was some kind of mistake or misunderstanding. But all I saw were averted gazes and uncomfortable shifts in seats. "I see," I said finally, my voice calm despite the hurt spreading through my chest. "When do you leave?" "Next Monday," Dad answered, seeming relieved I was not making a scene. "We will be gone for 10 days. 10 days. Not the 7 we had originally discussed." I nodded, stood up, and thanked Mom for dinner. I should get going. I have an early meeting tomorrow. No one protested or tried to stop me. No one acknowledged the elephant in the room. I had been deliberately excluded from a family tradition I had helped build and fund. As I drove the 3 hours back to Boston that night in complete silence, the question kept repeating in my mind. Why? The 3-hour drive back to my apartment in Boston that night was the longest of my life. The highways were nearly empty, giving me too much space to replay the dinner conversation in my head. Each mile marker ticked by as I analyzed every word, every glance, searching for clues I might have missed. Had I done something to upset them? Had I unknowingly crossed some line? Was this punishment for some perceived slight? Or was the truth much simpler and more painful? They simply preferred their time together without me. When I reached my apartment, it was nearly midnight. I called Jessica, hoping my oldest sister might provide some clarity. "Hey," she answered, her voice hushed. "Everything okay?" "Not really," I said. "I am trying to understand what happened tonight. Why am I suddenly not invited on the family vacation?" A long pause followed. "It is complicated, Hilton." "Then uncomplicate it for me." She sighed. "Everyone just thought it might be nice to have a different dynamic this year." "Different how?" I pressed. "I cannot really talk right now. Mom and Dad are in the next room," she whispered. "It is not personal, okay? It just worked out this way with the booking and everything." Before I could respond, she added quickly, "I have to go. We will talk later," and hung up. Next, I tried Amanda, usually the most straightforward of my sisters. "You are overreacting," she said immediately when I asked for the real reason. "It is just one vacation, not the end of the world." "But why was I excluded in the first place?" I persisted. "Look, sometimes Mom and the girls want to do certain things, and Dad just goes along with whatever keeps the peace. You know how it is." "So this is a girls' trip plus Dad?" I asked, confusion mounting. "No, not exactly," Amanda backtracked. "It is just different this time. Can you just let it go, please?" My final call was to Bethany, who let it go to voicemail twice before finally texting, "Too tired to talk. Everything will be fine. Love you, bro." The next morning, I did something I had never done before. I called in sick to work and spent hours researching the details of their trip. Through our shared family email for travel arrangements, I found their rental car confirmation, a 7-seat SUV, more than enough room for 6 adults and luggage. I found the rental property listing, a 4-bedroom condo with a maximum occupancy of 8. Again, plenty of room for me. My initial hurt transformed into something deeper as the evidence mounted. This was not about logistics. They had deliberately planned this trip without me and concocted transparent excuses to justify my exclusion. For the next few days, I debated confronting them with what I had discovered. Instead, I chose dignity over conflict. If they did not want me there, I would not force my presence on them. I texted my parents a brief, civil message. "I understand about the trip. Have a great time. Let me know if you need anything." Mom responded almost immediately. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. We will take lots of pictures." The casual nature of her response after such a significant exclusion only deepened my wound. Dad did not respond at all. The weekend before their departure, I buried myself in work, taking on extra projects to keep my mind occupied. I ignored the group chat notifications, showing increased activity as they finalized their plans. I declined Sunday dinner for the first time in years, claiming a work emergency. When Monday came, Mom sent a group text. "On our way. Florida. Here we come," accompanied by a car selfie showing my parents and sisters, all smiles and excitement. I sent back a thumbs-up emoji and turned off notifications. For the next few days, I maintained minimal contact. Dad sent a text about their safe arrival. Mom called once, but the conversation was brief and superficial. My sisters sent occasional generic updates that could have been directed at anyone. I responded with appropriate enthusiasm while feeling increasingly disconnected from the family I had always tried so hard to please. I told myself it was not personal. I reminded myself that I was a grown man who did not need to be included in everything. I rationalized their behavior and minimized my own feelings of rejection. What I could not do was shake the nagging feeling that this exclusion was merely the most obvious manifestation of a family dynamic that had always existed beneath the surface. On Thursday evening, as I sat alone in my apartment working late, my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. Mom had posted a photo album titled "Warner Family Florida Adventure, Day 4. Despite my better judgment, I clicked. The first image showed my family on a beautiful white boat, much larger than the small rental they had mentioned during the planning stages. They were all wearing matching blue shirts with Warner Family 2023 printed on them. Shirts I knew nothing about. Shirts that apparently were not ordered in my size. I scrolled through image after image. My family laughing on the beach. My family enjoying dinner at an upscale restaurant. my family posed in front of various attractions. And most painfully, a group photo with my parents, my sisters, and two people I recognized as our cousins from Atlanta, Brian and Melissa. The caption under this last photo read, "So grateful to have every one of these amazing people on our special trip, making memories that will last a lifetime." Number, blessed number, family first. Every one of these amazing people, except me. Cousins Brian and Melissa, who lived 13 hours away and whom we saw perhaps once every few years, had been invited on the too small, not enough room family vacation. They had received matching shirts. They had been included in the special trip while I, who lived 3 hours away and had helped fund this very vacation, had been told there simply was not space. As I stared at the photos, comments from family, friends, and relatives began appearing. "Looks like you're all having a wonderful time. Where's Hilton?" Mom's response came quickly. "He couldn't make it this year. Too busy with work." Another lie. Another casual erasure of the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from my Aunt Susan, Mom's sister. "Just saw Catherine's photos. Is everything okay? Call me if you need to talk." Attached were screenshots of additional photos I had not yet seen. One showed them all on an airboat tour of the Everglades, the exact activity I had suggested months ago. I set my phone down and walked to the window of my apartment, looking out at the Boston skyline as night fell. The city lights blurred as unexpected tears filled my eyes. It was not just the exclusion from the trip that hurt. It was the realization that my family had gone to great lengths to plan this event without me, had invited extended family instead of me, had lied to me about the reasons, and were now lying to others about my absence. For the first time, I allowed myself to acknowledge a painful truth. Perhaps I had always been the outsider in my own family, the one who was expected to contribute more but receive less, the one whose feelings were considered less important, the one who could be left behind because he was strong enough to handle it. I did not comment on any of the photos. I did not call out the lies. I simply logged off Facebook, turned off my phone, and sat in the darkness of my apartment, confronting the reality of where I truly stood with the people I had always tried hardest to please. The week crawled by with a heaviness I had never experienced before. I threw myself into work with an intensity that concerned even my normally demanding boss. "Everything okay, Hilton?" he asked, after finding me at my desk at 7:30 in the morning for the third day in a row. "Just focused," I replied with a forced smile. "Big project, you know." In truth, work was the only thing keeping me from obsessively checking social media for more evidence of my family's betrayal. I had muted their accounts but found myself manually searching for updates during moments of weakness. Each new post was another twist of the knife. On Friday morning, 5 days into their trip, I received a brief text from Mom. "Weather is perfect. Hope work is going well." No mention of the extended family members who had joined them. No acknowledgement of the deception. Just casual conversation, as if nothing had happened. I responded with equal brevity. "Glad you're enjoying it. Work is busy. Have fun." That evening, my colleague Marcus stopped by my desk as I was preparing to leave. "Dude, you will not believe who I saw yesterday. I was visiting my girlfriend's parents in Sarasota, and we went to this seafood place on the marina. Your entire family was there. I waved to your dad, but it was crowded, and I do not think he saw me." My stomach tightened. "My family is in Florida." "Yeah, why are not you with them? It looked like a big celebration or something. They were all dressed up." "I could not make it this year." I echoed the lie my mother had been telling. "Too much going on at work." Marcus looked confused. "That is too bad." "Hey, they extended their trip, right? Your dad mentioned to my girlfriend's father that they were staying for 2 weeks when they bumped into each other at the bar." 2 weeks, not 10 days as they had told me. Not the 7 days we had originally discussed. 2 full weeks. After Marcus left, I opened the shared family account app on my phone. There, I found a series of recent transactions. $1,200 for a private boat charter, $800 at a luxury restaurant, $950 for a fishing expedition, and various other charges totaling nearly $5,000 in just 5 days. Many of these charges were for activities and experiences I had researched and suggested months ago. The shared account had been my idea years ago. Each family member contributed what they could afford each month, creating a safety net for emergencies and a fund for our annual vacations. As the highest earner, my monthly contribution of $500 substantially outpaced everyone else's. My parents each put in $100, Jessica and Amanda $150 each, and Bethany, still establishing her career, contributed $75. Simple math made it clear. Of the roughly $14,000 in the account, more than half had come directly from me. Money that was now funding a vacation I had been explicitly told I could not join, paying for experiences I had personally suggested, including people who had been invited in my place. I called Jessica immediately, forgetting the 3-hour time difference. She answered, the sound of music and laughter in the background. "Hello?" she shouted over the noise. "Hilton? Everything okay?" "I just checked the family account," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "There have been a lot of charges." "Oh, yeah," she replied casually. "We decided to upgrade some things since the weather is so perfect. Do not worry," everyone agreed. "Everyone except me," I pointed out. "No one consulted me about using funds from an account I contribute the most to." The background noise diminished as she apparently moved to a quieter location. "Look, it is not a big deal. You can afford it, right? And we will all put in extra next month to balance things out." "That is not the point, Jessica. You all excluded me from a trip, lied about the reasons why, invited cousins in my place, and are now spending money I contributed without even discussing it with me." A long pause followed. "You are being sensitive about this. It is just one vacation. You extended it to 2 weeks, I said. Another detail no one bothered to share with me. "Who told you that?" she demanded, suddenly defensive. "Does it matter? It is true, is not it? We were having such a good time, we decided to stay longer. It was spontaneous." "Spontaneous," I repeated flatly. "Like spontaneously deciding there was not enough room for me but plenty for Brian and Melissa?" Another pause. "Mom and Dad really wanted to see them. It has been years. And the matching shirts? The boat that clearly had room for one more person? The 4-bedroom condo that supposedly could not fit 6 adults?" "I have to go," Jessica said abruptly. "We will talk when we get back. You are being dramatic right now." Before she could hang up, I asked one final question. Did anyone even want me on this trip in the first place? The extended silence before she disconnected told me everything I needed to know. The next morning, a Saturday, I woke to find more social media notifications. Despite my better judgment, I looked. Mom had posted more photos, this time from an upscale restaurant. "Best family dinner ever," read the caption under an image of everyone dressed in formal attire, raising glasses in a toast. The comment section was filled with relatives and friends sending their good wishes, including one that made my blood run cold. "Looks amazing. Where's Hilton hiding in these pictures?" My phone buzzed with a text from my Aunt Susan, Mom's sister. "Just saw Catherine's photos. Is everything okay? Call me if you need to talk." The blatant lie struck me like a physical blow. I had not had to work. I had been told there was no room for me. I had been excluded, replaced, and now my absence was being used to paint me as someone who prioritized career over family. One of my cousins, not realizing the truth, added insult to injury. "Tell workaholic Hilton to take a break sometimes. Family comes first." As I stared at these interactions, feeling increasingly like I existed in some parallel reality where my experiences and feelings did not matter, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize with a Georgia area code. Mom's response: "He had to work. Such a busy and important job keeps him away from family time, but we're so proud of his success." "Hilton? It is your Aunt Susan. I am in Atlanta visiting friends and thought I would call rather than text. Those photos Catherine keeps posting. Something is not right. You would never miss a family vacation for work. What is really going on?" For the first time since this ordeal began, someone was actually asking for my side of the story. The dam broke, and I found myself telling her everything from the initial exclusion to the discovery of additional guests to the financial aspects. "I always suspected something was off in how they treated you," she said after listening patiently. "Catherine was always harder on you than the girls, but this crosses a line. Have you confronted them directly? What would be the point? I asked wearily. They have made it clear where I stand. Outside the circle, looking in. You deserve better, Susan said firmly. And you need to decide what kind of relationship you want going forward. One where you continue to give more than you receive, or one with boundaries that protect you. After we hung up, I sat for a long time considering her words. What kind of relationship did I want? Could things ever go back to normal after this? Did I even want them to? As I contemplated these questions, my phone chimed with another notification. Mom had tagged me in a new post. Missing our Hilton today. Next trip for sure. The performative inclusion after such deliberate exclusion was the final straw. Something inside me shifted. A lifetime of acceptance giving way to the realization that I deserved more than the scraps of affection my family had been offering. It was time to stop pretending that everything was okay when it clearly was not. Time to stop financing my own exclusion. Time to establish the boundaries Aunt Susan had mentioned. I took a deep breath and made my decision. The revelations continued to pile up over the weekend. My coworker Marcus texted me Saturday evening. Saw your family again at that marine wildlife park. Your cousin was saying something about extending the trip even more. Hope that is okay with you, man. I thanked him for the information without offering any explanation. 3 hours later, I checked the shared account again and found new charges. $2,100 for a beachfront dinner cruise. $1,400 for what appeared to be extended accommodations and various shopping charges at upscale boutiques. The family that had told me there was not enough room or money for a proper vacation was now on an extended luxury getaway, funded significantly by my contributions, while actively maintaining the fiction that my absence was due to work commitments rather than their deliberate exclusion. I tried calling each of my parents separately. Dad's phone went straight to voicemail. Mom texted back, "On a sunset cruise, call tomorrow," accompanied by a photo of the entire group in formal attire on what appeared to be a yacht. Sunday morning brought another series of charges to the account, including one that particularly stung. $350 at a custom t-shirt shop, presumably for another round of Warner family memorabilia, from which I would be conspicuously absent. By Sunday afternoon, I had reached my breaking point. I called Amanda, historically the most reasonable of my sisters. "This has gotten out of hand," I said when she answered. "What are you talking about?" She sounded genuinely confused, or perhaps just unwilling to acknowledge the situation. The extended trip, the excessive spending from the shared account, the lies about why I am not there. She sighed heavily. "Can we not do this right now? We are about to go parasailing." "Parasailing," I repeated. Another activity that was not in the original budget we all discussed. "Look, everyone is having a great time. Can you not just be happy for us? Happy that I was deliberately excluded? Happy that you are all spending my money without consultation? Happy that Mom is publicly lying about why I am not there? You make everything about you," Amanda snapped. "It is exhausting. This is why everyone needed a break." Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. "A break from me? Is that what this is?" A telling pause followed. "That came out wrong," she backpedaled. "No, I think it came out exactly right. For the first time, someone is being honest. You all wanted a break from me, so you planned this elaborate deception instead of just saying so." "It was not like that," she protested weakly. "Then tell me what it was like, Amanda. Explain to me how any of this is okay. I have to go. The boat is leaving." And with that, she hung up. I sat in stunned silence, her words echoing in my mind. This is why everyone needed a break. After years of being the supportive brother, the generous son, the reliable family member who never complained about the inequities, I had become someone they needed a break from. Monday morning, I received an unexpected call from Bethany. "I just wanted to check on you," she said, her voice unusually subdued. "Why now?" I asked. "It has been over a week since this all started." "Amanda told us about your conversation yesterday. You seemed upset." "Upset," I repeated incredulously. "That might be the understatement of the year." "I know it looks bad," she admitted. "But everyone thought you would understand. You always do." There it was again, the expectation that I would simply accept whatever treatment they decided to give me, Because I was strong. Because I always understood. Not this time, I said quietly. This time you all went too far. What does that mean? She asked, a note of concern finally entering her voice. It means I am done being the family ATM who does not get a vote. It means I am done pretending everything is fine when it is not. You are scaring me, Hilton. Good. Maybe fear will accomplish what respect clearly could not. After ending the call, I made an appointment with my bank for later that morning. If my family wanted a wake-up call, I would give them one. At the bank, I met with a financial advisor and explained the situation. I need to remove myself from this joint account immediately, I told her. I understand, she said after reviewing the account details. Since you are one of the primary account holders, you have several options. We discussed the possibilities, and I made my decision. I would not empty the account entirely, which I could have legally done. Instead, I froze it, preventing any further transactions until all account holders could meet to discuss its future. I then created a separate personal emergency fund that my family could not access. The bank representative explained that any pending charges would be declined, and anyone attempting to use the account would receive a message that it had been temporarily suspended. Are you sure about this? She asked before processing the request. Family financial matters can get complicated quickly. I am sure, I replied. It is time for a long overdue conversation about boundaries and respect. By Monday afternoon, I had received no calls or texts from Florida. Either they had not yet attempted to use the account, or they were deciding how to approach me about it. Tuesday morning, everything exploded. My phone began ringing at 6:47 a.m. Dad's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then listened as his voice, tense and angry, filled my ear. Hilton, call me immediately. There is something wrong with the family account. Your mother tried to pay for the dolphin excursion, and the card was declined. Call me back right now. 6 more calls followed in rapid succession, each voicemail increasingly urgent. No mention of why I had been excluded from the trip. No acknowledgement of the excessive spending, just demands that I fix the problem immediately. At 8:15 a.m., the text messages began. Jessica. Dad is freaking out. What did you do to the account? Amanda. Why did you freeze the family account? Mom is crying. Bethany. Please call Dad. This is not funny. I turned my phone to silent and went to work, focusing on my projects with a strange sense of calm. For the first time in my life, I was setting a boundary with my family, and while part of me felt guilty, a stronger part felt something unexpected, relief. By lunchtime, I had 21 missed calls from Dad alone, plus another 15 from Mom and various sisters. The text messages had evolved from confusion to anger to outright threats. Jessica, if you do not fix this right now, I swear to God. Hilton. Amanda, you are being incredibly childish. People are stranded here. Dad, this is completely unacceptable behavior. Unfreeze the account now. Mom, I do not understand why you are doing this to your family. We are stuck without funds. A particularly revealing text came from Bethany. We extended the trip again and now cannot pay for the extra days at the condo. The owner is threatening to call the police if we do not pay by 5 p.m. Is that what you want? They had extended again, without funds to cover it, assuming as always that I would foot the bill without question, without inclusion, without respect. Around 3 p.m., my boss stopped by my desk. Your phone has been buzzing non-stop in your drawer. Everything okay? Family emergency, I said simply. Nothing I cannot handle. Take the rest of the day if you need to, he offered. I nodded gratefully and gathered my things. This confrontation could not be postponed any longer. When I got home, I finally checked my voicemail. The most recent one from Dad was different from the others. His voice was subdued, almost pleading. Hilton, I do not know what is going on or why you have done this, but we are in a real situation here. The car broke down outside of Savannah. We are stranded at some small-town garage. They want $1,200 for repairs we cannot pay for. We need access to the account. Please, son, call me back. Broken down in Georgia, stranded. Needing the very emergency fund I had been contributing to for years, intended exactly for situations like this. The irony was not lost on me. I sat down at my kitchen table and composed a single text message in reply to all their calls and texts. I know about the cousins. I know about the boat with plenty of room. I know about the extended trip using my money. I know about the matching shirts. I know Mom has been lying online about why I am not there. I know everything. I will send $1 to the account in 30 minutes so you can all experience what exclusion feels like. After that, we can discuss next steps. Then I turned my phone off, made a cup of coffee, and waited for the storm that would inevitably follow. For 30 minutes, I sat in the silence of my apartment, contemplating how my relationship with my family had reached this breaking point. Growing up, I had always been the peacemaker, the one who accepted less to keep everyone happy. I had internalized the narrative that being the only son meant I needed to be stronger, more independent, less needy. But where had that gotten me? Excluded from a family vacation I had helped plan and fund, replaced by cousins who rarely factored into our lives, lied about on social media to maintain some fiction about our perfect family dynamic. As the 30-minute mark approached, I turned my phone back on. Immediately, it exploded with notifications, 12 new voicemails, 37 text messages, and even emails from both parents and all 3 sisters. I ignored them all and opened the banking app. As promised, I transferred exactly $1 to the shared family account with a memo. This is what being excluded feels like. Then I composed a longer message to the family group chat. For years, I have contributed more than my fair share financially, emotionally, and practically to this family. I have accepted less in return because I was taught that was my role, as the only son, the strong one. I have overlooked countless small exclusions and inequities because family mattered more to me than fairness. But this vacation crossed a line. You deliberately excluded me, replaced me with cousins, lied about the reasons, spent my money without consultation, and then lied publicly about my absence. When confronted, you dismissed my feelings as dramatic and sensitive. You extended the trip multiple times without discussing it with me, despite using funds I primarily contributed. The account will remain frozen until I return home on Sunday. I have transferred enough money to cover the car repairs and a hotel for tonight. Any additional expenses will need to wait until we have had a serious conversation about respect, boundaries, and what family truly means. I am turning off my phone for the rest of the day. I suggest you use this time to reflect on how we got here and whether you want a relationship with me going forward that includes mutual respect rather than just my continued financial support. I sent the message, then transferred $1,500 to Dad's personal account to cover the immediate emergency, despite my anger. I was setting boundaries, not endangering their safety. Then, as promised, I turned off my phone again. That evening, I met my friend Michael for drinks at our usual bar. Michael had been my roommate in college and remained one of the few people who truly understood my family dynamic. "So you finally stood up to them," he said after I explained the situation. "About time." "I feel guilty," I admitted. "They are stranded in Georgia, with plenty of money to get home, thanks to you," he reminded me. "Even when setting boundaries, you are still taking care of them." "Is it wrong, though? Freezing the account like that?" Michael considered this. "Is it wrong for them to exclude you from a family vacation? To lie about why? To spend your money without permission? To extend a trip multiple times without consulting you? To invite other people in your place?" Put that way, my actions seemed almost mild in comparison. "The question now," Michael continued, "is what happens next? What do you want from this relationship going forward?" It was the same question Aunt Susan had asked, and I still did not have a clear answer. "I do not want to cut them off," I said finally. "But I cannot go back to how things were either." Then you need to decide what your boundaries are, what you will and will not accept. And you need to be prepared to enforce those boundaries even when it is uncomfortable. When I returned home and turned my phone back on, the barrage continued. Most messages had shifted from anger to concern to bargaining. Dad confirmed receiving the money for repairs. Mom sent a tearful voice message saying they were safely checked into a hotel. My sister's texts ranged from Bethany's apparent remorse to Amanda's continued defensiveness to Jessica's attempts at mediation. I responded to Dad only. Glad you are safe. We will talk when you return. Please give everyone space to process this situation." The next morning, I went to work as usual, but requested Friday off. I would need time to prepare for their return and the inevitable confrontation. My boss, sensing something significant was happening, approved without questions. Throughout Wednesday and Thursday, the messages continued, evolving in tone and content. Mom sent long, emotional texts about how much she loved me and how she never meant to hurt me. Dad, more pragmatic, focused on logistics of unfreezing the account and getting everyone home safely. My sisters cycled through various approaches. From Amanda's, "This is being blown completely out of proportion," to Jessica's, "We all made mistakes here," to Bethany's. I knew this was wrong from the beginning. I responded minimally, confirming only that I was safe and would meet with them upon their return. I did not engage with their attempts to discuss, defend, or downplay what had happened. That conversation needed to happen in person, when emotions had cooled and everyone could speak honestly. On Friday morning, I received an email from Dad with the subject line "Family Situation." It was lengthy and began with several paragraphs defending their decisions about the vacation as misunderstood and my reaction as disproportionate. But toward the end, something shifted. Upon reflection, I can see how our actions appeared deliberately exclusionary. That was never the intention, but intentions matter less than impacts. We should have been more transparent about the planning. We should have consulted you about the extended stays and additional expenses from the shared account. We should not have invited Brian and Melissa without discussing it with you first. Your mother and I have been talking extensively during the drive home. We would like to request a family meeting on Sunday to discuss everything openly and honestly. All cards on the table, no excuses or deflections. Just truth, however uncomfortable. Let me know if this is acceptable to you. It was the first genuine acknowledgement of wrongdoing I had received, albeit couched in careful language. I replied simply, "Sunday, 2 p.m., at your house." Everyone needs to be present and prepared for complete honesty. As Sunday approached, I prepared myself mentally and emotionally for what would likely be one of the most difficult conversations of my life. I consulted with both Michael and Aunt Susan, who both offered the same essential advice. Stay calm, be clear about my boundaries going forward, and be prepared for defensiveness before acceptance. On Saturday night, I barely slept, rehearsing what I wanted to say and anticipating their responses. By Sunday morning, I felt simultaneously exhausted and hyper-alert, my body humming with nervous energy. At 1:45 p.m., I parked outside my parents' house in Newton, the same house where I had been told 2 weeks earlier that there was not enough room for me on the family vacation. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the door, knocked, and prepared to finally have the conversation that was decades overdue. The house was unusually quiet as Dad opened the door. Normally, a family gathering would be filled with overlapping conversations, music, or the television providing background noise. Today, the silence felt heavy, expectant. "Hilton," Dad said, his usual confident demeanor subdued. "Thank you for coming." I nodded without smiling and followed him into the living room where everyone was already seated. Mom occupied her usual armchair, looking smaller somehow, her hands nervously folding and refolding a tissue. Jessica and Amanda sat together on the couch, both with carefully neutral expressions. Bethany sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes red-rimmed as though she had been crying. No one rushed to hug me as they normally would. No one asked about my drive or offered refreshments. The typical Warner family social scripts had been suspended in acknowledgement of the gravity of the situation. "Should we begin?" Dad asked after I took the remaining armchair, typically his seat, which he had deliberately left for me. "I think that would be best," I replied, my voice steadier than I had expected. Dad cleared his throat. "First, I want to apologize for how the vacation situation was handled. There were better ways to communicate, and we failed in that regard. It was a start, but still cushioned in vague language that sidestepped the central issue. I do not want apologies for poor communication," I said. "I want honesty about why I was excluded in the first place. No more excuses about space or logistics. We all know those were fabrications." Mom's eyes welled with tears. "It was not supposed to happen like this. It just evolved. What evolved, exactly? I pressed. She exchanged glances with my sisters before continuing. The girls and I were talking about doing a mother-daughter's trip, just something small. But then Robert wanted to come too, and it made more sense to just do the annual family vacation. Without me, I finished for her. We should have been up front, Jessica interjected. That was our mistake. No, I shook my head. Your mistake was not being honest. Your choice was to exclude me. There is a difference. Amanda, always the most defensive, spoke up. It was not some grand conspiracy, Hilton. Mom wanted time with just her daughters. Dad did not want to be left out. It snowballed from there. And no one thought to consider my feelings in all this snowballing? We knew you would be hurt, Bethany said quietly. That is why no one wanted to tell you the truth. So lying seemed like the better option? I asked incredulously. Creating elaborate stories about not enough space? Pretending it was about logistics rather than simply not wanting me there? We did want you there, Mom protested weakly. Just, maybe not this time. The painful honesty of her statement hung in the air. Just not this time. Because I was expendable. Because my inclusion was optional rather than essential. What about the cousins? I asked. Was there not enough room for me? But somehow space appeared for Brian and Melissa. Another uncomfortable silence followed. That was my doing, Dad finally admitted. Brian called about visiting the same week. It seemed easier to invite them to join us than to explain why we were all going to be in Florida. Easier for whom, I asked. Certainly not for me, watching strangers receive invitations to a trip I was told I could not join. We screwed up, Jessica said bluntly, monumentally. But freezing the account while we were stranded was an extreme reaction. Was it? I countered. Because from where I stand, it was the first time any of you had to face consequences for how you treat me. The first time in 34 years that I did not simply accept whatever scraps of inclusion you decided to throw my way. Scraps? Mom repeated, looking genuinely shocked. Is that how you see your place in this family? How else should I see it? The brother who gets less support for college. The son who receives less for birthdays and holidays. The family member whose suggestions are incorporated into a vacation he is not allowed to attend. The primary contributor to an account used to fund his own exclusion. My voice remained calm, but I could see my words landing like physical blows. For perhaps the first time, they were hearing how their pattern of behavior had affected me over the years. I had no idea you felt this way, Dad said quietly. Why have you never said anything? Because I was taught that acceptance was my role. That being the strong one meant never complaining about inequality. That loving my family meant putting everyone else's needs before my own, always. We never intended, Mom began, but I interrupted. Intent does not erase impact. You may not have intended to create a family dynamic where I am consistently valued less, but that is what happened. And this vacation was simply the most obvious manifestation of a pattern that has existed my entire life. Amanda, still struggling to accept her part in the situation, tried again. The account freeze was still an overreaction. We were actually stranded, Hilton, after extending the trip multiple times without consulting me. After spending thousands more than planned. After using funds I primarily contributed to finance a vacation, I was explicitly told I could not join. The freeze was not an overreaction. It was the natural consequence of your actions. So what now? Jessica asked. Ever the practical one. Where do we go from here? It was the question I had been considering for days. That depends on whether you all are willing to acknowledge the real issues and commit to meaningful change. Of course we are, Mom said immediately. You are my son. I love you. Love without respect is not enough, I replied. I need more than declarations of affection. I need concrete changes in how this family operates. I outlined my requirements. Complete financial separation except for specific shared expenses with clear agreements. Transparent communication about family events and plans. Acknowledgement of past patterns. And individual conversations with each family member to address specific relationship dynamics. The shared account will remain frozen until we have a clear written agreement about its purpose and management, I added. I have created a separate emergency fund for myself. I suggest you all do the same. This feels so formal, Mom said, distressed. We are family. Being family does not exempt you from treating each other with respect, I replied. In fact, it should hold you to a higher standard. I agree with Hilton, Bethany said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her in surprise. We have treated him differently. We have expected more from him and given less in return. And when he finally called us on it, our first response was to be angry that our comfortable system was disrupted, not to examine why he felt pushed to that point. Her unexpected support shifted something in the room. Jessica nodded slowly. She is right, and I am sorry, Hilton. Truly sorry for my part in this. Amanda remained silent, arms crossed defensively, but I could see uncertainty replacing her previous conviction. Dad stood up and walked to the window, his back to the room as he gathered his thoughts. When he turned back, his expression was solemn. I have failed you as a father, he said simply. I allowed and even reinforced an unequal dynamic in this family. I did not protect you from unfairness. I did not ensure you received the same love and support as your sisters. And when the opportunity arose to finally acknowledge this pattern, I chose the easy path of excuses and deflection. His unexpected candor broke something open in the room. Mom began to cry in earnest. Jessica moved to sit beside me on the arm of my chair. Bethany remained on the floor but reached out to touch my foot, a small gesture of solidarity. Only Amanda remained apart, still processing, still resistant to accepting her role in the family dynamic. I need time, she said finally. This is a lot to take in. Take all the time you need, I replied. But understand that our relationship cannot continue as it was. As the meeting drew to a close, concrete plans were made for follow-up conversations. Dad would draft a proposal for the shared account. Mom and I would meet privately the following weekend. Jessica and Bethany both requested individual conversations to address our specific relationship dynamics. Amanda, still uncomfortable with the new reality, agreed only to think about things, but made no specific commitments. As I prepared to leave, Mom approached me tentatively. "Can I hug you?" she asked, a question she had never felt the need to ask before. I nodded and allowed her embrace, though I did not return it with my usual enthusiasm. Boundaries would need to be maintained until trust was rebuilt. "I am so sorry, Hilton," she whispered. "So very sorry." "I know," I replied, "but sorry is just the beginning. What matters now is what changes." As I drove back to Boston that evening, I felt simultaneously drained and lighter. For the first time in my life, I had demanded the respect I deserved from my family. I had named the inequities that had shaped our relationships for decades. I had set boundaries that protected my financial and emotional well-being. The road ahead would not be easy. Old patterns would resist change. Some relationships, particularly with Amanda, might never fully recover. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly seen by my family, not just as the reliable son and brother who could be counted on to give more than he received, but as a full and equal member deserving of the same consideration given to everyone else. My phone buzzed with a text from Bethany. "Proud of you today. That took courage. Love you, bro." A small smile formed as I realized that sometimes the most painful ruptures create space for something healthier to grow. The months following that difficult Sunday meeting brought significant changes to my family dynamic. Some were immediate and concrete. The shared account was restructured with clear written agreements about contributions and expenditures. Future family events were planned with transparent communication and equal input from all members. Past patterns were acknowledged openly rather than brushed aside. Other changes were more gradual and nuanced. The way conversations flowed more equitably during family gatherings. The increased effort from my parents to connect with me individually. The small acknowledgments of my contributions that had previously gone unmentioned. 2 weeks after our confrontation, I met privately with Mom at a cafe halfway between Boston and Newton. She arrived with a small photo album I had never seen before. "These are pictures of you growing up," she explained as we sat down. "Things I saved that you probably do not even remember." I flipped through pages of school awards, childhood drawings, and candid photos, surprised by the evidence of maternal attention I had not felt at the time. "I always saw you," she said softly. "I just did not show it the way you needed. I think I believed that the girls needed more obvious support and encouragement. that you were naturally confident and self-sufficient. I projected that image because it seemed to be what you wanted from me, I replied. The strong son who never complained, never needed, never asked for more. She nodded sadly. I realize now how unfair that was, how it created a dynamic where you gave more and received less because we all assumed you did not need the same support. Our conversation that day was the first of many that gradually rebuilt trust between us. Mom made consistent efforts to connect with me in ways she never had before, asking about my interests, acknowledging my feelings, and most importantly, ensuring I was included in all family matters. Dad's approach to reconciliation was more practical. He drew up a detailed proposal for the shared account that acknowledged my larger contributions and ensured equal decision-making power for all members. He also began calling me regularly, not just when he needed something, but to check in, to share stories about his day, to build the father-son relationship that had always taken a back seat to his relationships with my sisters. Jessica proved surprisingly adaptable to our new family dynamic. As the oldest sister, she had perhaps benefited most from the previous arrangement, but she also possessed the emotional intelligence to recognize its fundamental unfairness. I always knew you got a raw deal, she admitted during our private conversation. I just did not want to rock the boat by pointing it out. That makes you complicit, I said, not unkindly. I know, and I am trying to do better now, to be the sister you deserve rather than the one who looked the other way. Bethany, already the most supportive during the confrontation, became an unexpected ally in maintaining our new boundaries. The youngest sibling, who had received the most benefit from our parents' unequal treatment, became the most vocal advocate for fairness. I never questioned getting more because it seemed normal, she explained. Now I cannot unsee the pattern, and I cannot stay silent about it. Amanda remained the most resistant to change. Our individual conversation was tense, her defensiveness, a wall between us. You humiliated the entire family, she insisted, stranding us in Georgia, making this huge, dramatic statement. The family humiliated me first, I countered, excluding me from a vacation, lying about the reasons, replacing me with cousins, and spending my money to do it. We reached an uneasy truce rather than true reconciliation. Our relationship became more distant but also more honest, the false closeness of previous years replaced by a cautious respect for each other's boundaries. 6 months after the Florida incident, we attempted our first family gathering that resembled our previous traditions. A weekend at a rented lake house, planned collectively with input from everyone, costs shared equally relative to income, and most importantly, with explicit invitations to all family members. The weekend was not without tension. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, quickly identified and addressed. Conversations sometimes grew uncomfortable as we navigated our new dynamic, but there were also moments of genuine connection that felt healthier and more authentic than before. On the final evening, as we sat around a campfire, Dad raised his glass, to new beginnings and hard-learned lessons, and to Hilton, who had the courage to demand better from all of us. The toast acknowledged what we all now recognized, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to refuse to participate in patterns that diminish any of its members. As the 1-year anniversary of the Florida trip approached, I received an unexpected email from Mom with the subject line, "Next year's vacation planning." It contained a detailed proposal for a family trip to the Grand Canyon, with explicit confirmation that all family members are not only welcome but essential. I smiled at the phrasing, recognizing the effort to demonstrate that the lessons had truly been learned. My response was simple: I would be happy to join. Thank you for including me from the start. The journey was far from complete. Decades of established dynamics could not be undone in a single year. Trust, once broken, required consistent effort to rebuild. Some wounds healed more completely than others, but the fundamental shift had occurred. I was no longer the family member who contributed more and received less without question. I was no longer expected to accept exclusion or inequality as my natural role. I was no longer silent about patterns that hurt me, even when acknowledging them created discomfort for others. In finding my voice and setting boundaries, I had not only changed my place within my family, but had given everyone the opportunity to create healthier relationships moving forward. Some embraced this opportunity more fully than others, but all acknowledged the necessity of the change, however painful the process had been. The most profound lesson I learned through this experience was that true family connection cannot exist without equal respect. That love without fairness becomes a burden rather than a support. That setting boundaries is not selfish, but essential for authentic relationships. Most importantly, I learned that my worth was not determined by my family's validation or inclusion. While rebuilding those relationships remained important to me, I no longer tied my self-value to their approval. I had created stronger friendships, developed new traditions with chosen family, and built a life where I was valued for exactly who I was, not for what I could provide or how little I would accept in return. If you have ever felt like the forgotten family member, the one expected to give more than you receive, know that you deserve equal respect and consideration. Setting boundaries is not about punishing others, but about protecting yourself and creating space for healthier relationships to grow. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and your family is to refuse to participate in patterns that diminish your worth. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? What helped you find the courage to stand up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating challenging family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, you deserve to be treated with respect in every relationship, especially with those who claim to love you most.